Oh hey Vaishnava Katha, Doyara Sagara, Hidase Karuna Kori. Diya Parachaya Shoro He Amane Tumara Charana Dori. Diya Parachaya Shoro He Amane Tumara Charana Dori. Chaya Bhega Dhumi Chaya Dosha Shodhi Jaya Devu Bhunasate Jaya Vega Dhumi Jaya Dosha Shodhi Jaya Bhunasate Jaya Satsanga Deho He Amare Boshashi Shangera Ekaki ama nahi pai bado Hare Nama Sankirtane. Ekaki ama nahi pai bado Hare Nama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kori Shraddha bindu diya Deho Krishna Nama Dhane. Tumi kripa kori Shraddha bindu diya Deho Krishna Nama Dhane. Krishna se tomar Krishna dite paro Tomara Shakti ache. Amito Ganga Krishna Krishna Boli Daita Pache Pache. Amito Ganga Krishna Krishna Boli Daita Pache Pache. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Hidase Karuna Kori. Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Hidase Karuna Kori. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Ujjvala Bhavana. Ujjvala Bhavana, Gauravar Deha, Vilasita Niravari Bhava Videham. Ujjvala Shachi Tanayam Gagaram Para Baba Vikara Ujana Sarjana Nada Vishala Babaya Bhagana Karana Karuna Samprana Mamicha Shri Shakti Pranayam Shri Sachinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai Anubhan Bharagara Charu Kapola Indu Benindita Nakashaya Ruchiram Shri Shachi Tanayam Degalika Nayana Kamala Jala Garam Bhushara Navarasa Baba Vikaram Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Vilasam Samprana Mamicha Shri Shakti Tanayam Sanchara Charu Charna Bhakti Ruchiram Manjiraram Siddha Pada Yuga Madhuram Nindita Shitala Varanam Samprana Mamicha Shri Shachi Tanayam Vidya Kakti Goga Kamandalu Jandam Vidya Kale Varam Tamundam Oh Premanande Haribo Vijay Vijay Duryana Kalmacha Khandana Dandam Samprana Manicha Shri Shakti Tanayam Vishana Viraja Lakavalitam Sampita Vindara Rara Ruchira Jagira Chita Lugala Tilakam Kamana Manisha Shri Shakti Tanayam Go Premanande Vindita Aduna Kaladandanayanam Adanulam Vita Shri Vijayugalam Go Premanande Harimo Devara Kaishora Nartaka Vesham Samprana Manisha Shri Shakti Tanayam Ujala Varana Venda Varadeha Vistanira Vari Baba Videha Violation, Nandana Jaya Sachidananda Jaya Sachidananda Jaya Gaura Hari Hari Bol Vrindavan, Mangal Arati. Vidbhabari Shesha Loka Nitrakari Uttoti Viva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Haya Viva Vedrinana Shama Purana Katha Saitava Satana Jaya Dasharati Rama Yashoda Tulala Govinda Gopal Vrindavana Purana Gopi Priyadana Radhika Ramana Purana Sundara Gopi Jana Vasahari Rajarata Gopa Vrindava Krishna Hari Vansika Hari Nogindra Bandhana Nanda Rajatana Bhayahari Navina Nira Rupa Manohara Mohana Vamshi Vihari Yashoda Nandana Kamsani Shudana Nikunjaya Samidasi Kadambhakanana Rasa Parayana Vrindamiti Namivasi Yashoda Premani Keta Bhulachara Jodakama Gopandanadana Chittavino Sadhuna Bandhana Jamuna Jivana Teparaya Bhakti Vinod.
Vedaya
Within my sinful heart, the 6 enemies headed by lust perpetually reside, as well as duplicity, the desire for fame, plus sheer cunning. At the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimha, I hope that he will mercifully purify my heart and give me the desire to serve Lord Krishna. Weeping, I will beg at the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimha for the benediction of worshipping Radha and Krishna in Navadvip, perfectly safe and free from all difficulties. When will this Lord Hari, whose terrible form strikes fear into fear itself, ever become pleased and show me his mercy? Even though Lord Nrsimha is terrifying toward the sinful souls, he offers great auspiciousness unto the devotees of Lord Krishna, headed by Prahlad Maharaj. When will he be pleased to speak words of compassion unto me, a worthless fool, and thereby make me fearless? He will say, dear child, sit down freely and live happily here in Shri Gauranga Dham. May you nicely worship the divine couple, and may you devote loving attachment for their holy names. By the mercy of my devotees, all obstacles are cast far away. With a purified heart, just perform the worship of Radha and Krishna, for such worship overflows with sweet nectar. Saying this, will that Lord delightedly place his own divine lotus feet upon my head? I will experience sublime love for the divine couple Radha Krishna and undergo the ecstatic transformations called Satvika. Falling on the ground, I will roll about at the door of Sri Nrsimha's temple. Gopremanande. No setup for Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, then we'll do a short chapter of Bhagavad Gita while we're setting up. Is that okay?
Yes.
So just have to move out of one area and everyone can take shelter over across the Viraja. Satata yukta ye bhaktasvam haripasate ye chapaksharam avyaktam kesham ke yoga viddamaha Shri Bhagavan Vasha maya vesha mano ye mam nitya yukta upasate hridaya vadayo petas ke me yukta tamamataha Ekvakshanam nirdeshyam avyaktam parupasate sarvatragam achintyam cha kutastam achalam dhruvam saniyam indriya gramam sarvatra samabhutaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hiterata klesho dikattarastesham Avyakta sakta chetasam, avyakta higatirtukam, dehavadbir avapyate. Yetu sarvani karmani, mayi sanyasamataraha, ananyena yogena, amnayana upasite, tesham aham sarvata, mrityu samsara sagara. Bhavamina chirapartha maya veshita tetasa Mayeva mana adatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, Nivashishyasi mayeva, Ata urdvam musamshaya, Atachitam samadhatu, Na shaknoshi mayi stiram, Abhyasa yogini tato, Mami chattum dhananjaya, Abhyase tisamartosi, Ad karma madamo bhava, Madartam api karmani, Purvam siddhir avapsisi, Ataitat apyashaktosi, Kartum madhyogam ashrita, Sarva karma palatyagam, Tatakuru yata bhavan, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasaj, Jnana dhyanam vishishyate, Jnana karma phala tyagas, Tyagas shantir anantaram, Adveshta sarva bhutanam, Maitra karana evacha, Nirmamo nirahankara, Samatuka sukashami, Santushta satatam yogi, Yatatma drita nishaya, Mayarpata mano buddhir, Yoman pakta same priyaha, Yasman no dvijate loko, Lokan no dvijate chaya, Arsham arsha vayo veger, Mukto yasa chame priyaha, Anapeksha shuchir daksha, Udasino gatavyata, Sarvadamba parityagi, Yomad bhakta same priyaha, Yona rishyati na dveshti, Na shochati na kamshati, Shubha shubha parityagi, Bhakti manya same priyaha, Samakshatra cha mitre cha, Tata mana pamanayo, Shitoshna sukha dukeshu, Samak sangha vavarjita, Tulyaninda stutir mauni, Santushto yena kena chit, Aniketa stiramatir, Bhaktiman me priyo naraha, Ye tu dharmamritamidam, Yatoktam paryupasate, Shradadhanamat parama, Bhaktaste teva me priyaha. Om Tat Sariti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Bhakti Yoga Nama Dvadasho Jaya Hari Om Masuma Prasya Vriprishti Vishnu Chandra Kurmo Devatashana Pavanashani Nirvaha Om Hara Shakti Om Anantaya Namo Kurmaya Namo Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Jamnati Ramanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Keep going. No. What group is this? Where's the new ones? That's all right. It's got to be lined up to begin with. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Vagisha yasya vadane lakshmi yasya cha vakshasi yastaste hridaye samvit tam nishingam baham bhaje sampradaya vashudartam sriya nirbandhayantritaha shruti stuti mitavakyam karishami yatamati Srimad Bhagavatam Purvai Sarasta Samakeshitam Maya Tutad Upashrishtam Uchishtam Upachiyate Mama Ratna Vanigbhavam Ratnanya Parichantava Asantu Santu Jihremi Naswaswanto Vinodakrit Nanesti Badhushapi Napapuktir Virakta Raktir Natatapi Laudyat Sudurgamad Eva Bhavani Veda Stutyarta Chintamani Rashi Grundnu Mam Nishchayantam Aviveka Vayu Pravartate Patayitum Balachche Likham Yata Swami Sanatana Shri Krishnam Gribhastamba Kritavalamba Pranamya Shri Gurum Bhuya Shri Krishnam Gurunarnavam Lokana Jagat Chakshu Shri Sukham Tam Upashtraye Om Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's for sure. Which verse? I haven't chosen yet. Which one would you like to hear? From the prayers last night, perhaps? Is there one that stands out from what we read last night that you'd like to hear? Balasyaneha Sharanam Pitaram Nrsimha. Okay. That's at 7-9-19. Balasyaneha Sharanam Pitaram Nrsimha Nartasya Chagaram Udhanvati Majatuno Taptasya Tat Pratividir Yayihanjisheshas Tavad Vibho Tanupritam Twarupekshitanam. Let's say together. Balasyaneha Sharanam Pitaram Nrsimha Nartasya Chagaram Udhanvati Majatuno Taptasya Tat Pratividir Yayihanjisheshas Tavad Vibho Tanupritam Twarupekshitanam. Balasya, of a little child. Na, not. Iha, in this world. Sharanam, shelter, protection. Pitarao, the father and mother. Narasimha, O my Lord Nrsingadev. Na, neither. Artasya, of a person suffering from some disease. Cha, also. Agadam, medicine. Udanvati, in the water of the ocean. Majjataha, of a person who is drowning. Now, the boat. Taptasya, of a person suffering from a condition of material misery. Tat pratividi, the counteraction invented for stopping the suffering of material existence. Ya, that which. Iha, in this material world. Anjasa, very easily. Ishta, accepted as a remedy. Tavat, similarly. Vipo, O my Lord, O Supreme. Tanubratam, of the living entities who have accepted material bodies. Twat upekshitanam, who are neglected by you and not accepted by you. My Lord Nrsingadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls, neglected and not cared for by you, cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician in medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. Purport. Through parental care, through remedies for different kinds of disease, and through means of protection on the water, in the air, and on land, there is always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of suffering in the material world, but none of them are guaranteed measures for protection. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. Despite the presence of a father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. Ultimately, the shelter is the Lord, and one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. This is guaranteed. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kauntaya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should consequently depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Although as a matter of routine duty, one must, of course, accept other remedial measures, no one can protect one who is neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, everyone is trying to counteract the onslaught of material nature, but everyone is ultimately fully controlled by material nature. Therefore, even though so-called philosophers and scientists try to surmount the onslaught of material nature, they have not been able to do so. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 13:9 that the real sufferings of the material world are four: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, birth, death, old age, and disease. In the history of the world, no one has been successful in conquering these miseries imposed by material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. Nature, Prakriti, is so strong that no one can overcome her stringent laws. So-called scientists, philosophers, religionists, and politicians should therefore conclude that they cannot offer facilities to the people in general. They should make vigorous propaganda to awaken the populace and raise them to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Our humble attempt to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement all of the world is the only remedy that can bring about a peaceful and happy life. We can never be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Twad upekshitanam. If we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world, in either the upper or lower. Raghupati Giriraj Lakshmi. If we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world in either the upper or lower planetary systems. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Nitai Namineche Namir Hate Sharamulye Nam Dite Chere Nitai Namineche Namir Hate Sharamulye Nam Dite Chere. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 3 examples given here of those who are helpless, but they represent everybody in this world. Balasya means those who are children, who are helpless. And then we have those who have fallen into the water and someone has sent a boat. And then we have those who will administer medicine as a remedy. And Prahlad Maharaj has the perfect perspective because his father, as he mentions earlier in this chapter, had covered all the various ways in which he could save himself from the anomalies of the material world, the maladies of the material world. And he was not successful. Prahlad Maharaj said that just by moving his eyebrow, Hiranyakashipu had become so powerful that he could annihilate people. He could change the course of nature because of his austerity. It looked as though he had beat the system. Or should it be beaten the system? Gurnath? Did he beat the system, or it looks as if he had beaten the system? Had beaten it. Had beat the system? Sounds better on the ear, right? Had beat the system. And those who had engagements had lost their engagements because Hiranyakashipu said, no, I'll take all the service. I'll run everything. You all just wait this out and be my servant. Do whatever I say. And he asked them to do tasks that were beneath their dignity. Prahlad Maharaj saw all this power, and then he saw that within a moment, the Shringadev had killed Hiranyakashipu, and he was crushed just like a little bug, easily. So he said, why should I endeavor for any of these things? And this is the mentality of attachment to the material world. That is, I think that by some arrangement, I can become happy. Shukadev Goswami also said something similar to this verse in the first canto. Deha patra kalatradishu atmasaini sasatsapi tesham pramatanidhanam pashanapina pashyati. That's, one may think that because my body is very strong, I'm taking the right supplements, I have the right insurance, I have enough money in the bank, my family members might protect me. Deha patra kalatradishu. I have my body, I have my husband, wife, I have my children, they're all doctors, they could save me, and so forth. Deha patra kalatradishu atmasainsya satsapi. He says, but these soldiers are fallible. When the time comes, one is forced to get sick. No one can avoid it, and when the time comes to leave one's body, there's no avoiding it either. And we have in the world of insurance, we know around here recently, a lot of trees were blown down, at least they were in our town. And when a tree falls on your car and you go to your insurance company, what do they tell you? Can you get any money? No, you can't. Why? It's an act of not nature, it's an act of God. That's written into the insurance policy. Acts of God are not covered. Generally speaking, people distinguish one incident from another. Somebody's mistake, turned the wrong way, crashed into something, from acts of God. But we don't cover acts of God because they could come at any time, unexpectedly. And they could be quite severe also. Nonetheless, we take shelter of whatever we can, and when we don't have enough insurance, then we get gap insurance. There's that one with the duck, I forget what it's called. Yeah, see, good advertising. Aflac. There's insurance to cover the gaps you might have missed. That's Hiranyakashipu. He had his best attorneys working on everything, try to cover everything, but then the Lord always slips through. So a great lesson that Prahlad Maharaj passes on to us is that my father was eminently qualified as a materialist. He took that route more than anyone in history. This is iconic. The iconic figure of materialistic endeavor is Hiranyakashipu. Let me live forever. Let me enjoy everything to the maximum. Let nobody else enjoy, only me. And he failed miserably, and within a second, the Lord vanquished him. Prahlad Maharaj then philosophizes in such a way that we can understand, because pashyana pina pashyati, although we see it, Shukadev Goswami says, we don't see. Mostly it's that we don't want to see. Or I should say, I don't want to see it, because then I'll have to admit that I have to surrender. And then I'm not perfect in protecting myself. So if a child was always protected by its parents, and no children would ever die. If medicine could cure a patient, then whenever you go to the hospital or talk to your doctor and say, can you cure this? Your doctor wouldn't say, I'll try. But if I accidentally kill you in the process, please don't mind. Because you have to sign triplicates, maybe sometimes 7 times, that when I do this surgery, doesn't mean that you're going to live, doesn't mean that you're going to get your leg back, doesn't mean anything. We're just going to try. And my grandfather was nicknamed Christopher Columbus because he used to cross the ocean so many times. He was an engineer and a patent holder. He sold patents to the U.S. Navy for steamships that would preserve the energy, so it saved them millions of dollars. And he hobnobbed with wealthy people. And at that time, one of the ways that wealthy people exhibited their wealth was to ride on fancy ships. So the fanciest of them all was the Titanic. And my grandfather had purchased a ticket. However, he had to wire the money. There used to be a PayPal back in those days. It was called Marconi. They could wire money. And Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan. When the Titanic got to the tip of France, somehow there was a problem with the connection with the Marconi that would wire the money to allow him to keep his passage on the Titanic. But it didn't. So they asked him to get off the boat, which he did, along with some other passengers who then went back into France. And soon afterwards, they read about how the unsinkable boat had sunk on its maiden voyage. And so confident were those who launched this luxury boat, it was so safe that they didn't bother putting enough lifeboats on because they said there's no need. Nothing could happen to this. But they rammed into an iceberg and it broke the hull, even though it was double hulled, and the boat sank, killing thousands of people, many of them very wealthy, and thinking that they had it made. Isn't this a cheery talk today? Well, the good news is that we have nothing to do with this material world. And we should know the difference between the material world and the spiritual world, correct? If we were going to pick an ideal verse to describe the difference between the two, which would we choose? Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo payam saha vinashenam ratum tirtva sambhutam ratum ashnute. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead along with his name, his fame, his qualities and paraphernalia. And one should also know about the temporary material world with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one can see the difference between these two and take shelter of the eternal abode, then one can enjoy immortality and be transferred to the spiritual world. Categorically, any endeavor to be happy in the material world will not be successful. And pursuant to Kurnath Prabhu's very important question this morning during japa, Prabhupada mentions in this purport today that we of course must take whatever remedial measure we can for saving our children, for saving our bodies, and for putting on your safety belt. This verse doesn't mean don't wear your safety belt. Of course, this might spark a controversy online. Kurnath got it. We may, unbeknownst to us, it may be a controversial talk. But we should take every endeavor to care for our children, care for our body, but we should do it in the mood that this body and all the paraphernalia that we have, for instance, this building or the cars that we use, are used in Krishna's service. In the old days, devotees used to drive a car without changing the oil for 100,000 miles. I hope some of you find that amusing because that means you know you need to change it more regularly than that. But no one gave a thought to maintenance, nor did people think very much about maintaining their bodies. And there have been many instances where we didn't take care of putting the right paperwork into, or taking care of insurance and things like that in order to protect properties. But that wasn't Prabhupada's idea. His idea was what it says in the Bhagavatam, kamasya nendriya pritir labo jivete yavata jivasya tattva jignasya narto yashcheha karmavi, that you have to do everything that you can to take care of yourself so that you can go on serving Krishna. And this is the juxtaposition, the material endeavor in which one has to be methodical, but dispassionate in taking care of whatever one can for the sake of engaging it in Krishna's service for as long as possible and without interruption. And on the other side, one should be cognizant of what Prahlad Maharaj is telling us here, and that is, it's up to Krishna. And when we're in this mood that we take shelter of Krishna's arrangement and see things as his mercy, then Lord Brahma says, Tatenu kampam susamikshamano punjana evatmar kritam vipakam ridvag vapur viradam namaste jivete yo mukti padesa dayabhag. This is the perfect positioning for one who is a devotee living in the material world. We understand that there will be problems, but when they come, we should take it that these were God-given in order for us to test out the last 7 verses in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that we just read. That is, to go on doing our service, to be tolerant, and to see that these are obstacles given by Krishna so that we can improve ourselves. And such a person can inherit the kingdom of God. So many commonsensical points that Prahlad Maharaj makes to his students, and then when he recounts what Narada taught him in the womb, much of it was about not getting too attached to the material world. And Prahlad, especially in this chapter, talks about the importance of being attached to Krishna and one's guru as the guiding light in one's life. That's the preface or some preliminary comments, and now we'll take some reflections to expand the conversation. Yes, Prabhu. 1, 2. All the way to the back for Achyuta. He was first.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that talk. I was also remembering one point which you always make, that we might get the benedictions or resources, but we should be prayerful also that to Krishna, that whatever benedictions and resources we are getting, please Krishna give us the intelligence to handle that benediction or to use that benediction or resources wisely, be it association, be it material resources. So I was just remembering that point about what you make for Hiranyakashipu as well.
Thank you for reminding us. This takes place in the beginning of the pastime when Hiranyakashipu is discovered. Everything's going along fine in the universe until there's a WhatsApp that says somebody's got smoke coming out of their head and intense light and heat. And when we get such news, at first it sounds odd and maybe it's not a big deal, but sometimes it leads to a bigger event than we thought. And this certainly did. And it's indicative of the way that the material world goes. Prabhupada compared it to the way the ocean goes for seafarers. As he went across the ocean, Prabhupada said sometimes the ocean is perfectly placid, and then an hour later it's got a huge storm. And he said that this is because of the churning of the modes of nature. And Krishna describes it in the Bhagavad Gita that there can be an upsurge in various modes, because although we may be maintaining the status quo right now, then any of the modes which are always battling for supremacy may then surpass the mode that's maintaining our status quo. And this happened in the universe. Everyone came to Brahma. Brahma said, I think I know who this is. He came down and attended to Hiranyakashipu because there's a symbiotic relationship between the entities in this material world. The devas are dependent on ordinary human beings for yajna, and the human beings are dependent on the devas for giving them electricity and recycling, everything. This all goes on by divine nature or by the arrangement of Krishna. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. However, Hiranyakashipu had figured that by extreme tapasya he could beat that system. And when Brahma asked him what he wanted, Brahma could ascertain from his answer that it was misguided. That is, Hiranyakashipu was misguided. And the Bhagavatam juxtaposes Hiranyakashipu with Prahlad Maharaj. And we read the verse this morning. Prahlad says, the moment you try to enjoy the material world, that's when you start to suffer. Think about how poor people, at least they have a hope that someday they might be happy. If we can just pay off the mortgage in our little cinder block house someday. But rich people, they really suffer because they have everything and then they think there's nothing here. And after Hiranyakashipu asked for his benedictions, Brahma rolled his eyes and thought, this isn't going to work out. And therein, Prabhupada writes that one should not take benedictions that one can't maintain. And the implication of this whole story is nobody can maintain a material benediction because kama, or material desire, Prabhupada writes, is by definition a desire that cannot be fulfilled. If I have a desire that's separate from serving Krishna, then it won't be fulfilled and I'll become more frustrated than I was before. So that's an important point, that Bhoga Ishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Prahita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Samadao Na Vidyate. Krishna says it categorically in the Bhagavad Gita. If you want material enjoyment, or you want to show off by pretending that you're impervious to the material nature because you have a lot of money, or you look really good, it won't work. Because of the way that the material nature usurps everything. Beauty is shocking if you live long enough to see all the movie stars you thought were the most attractive people. I was very surprised when Paul Newman died because I figured he'd live forever. You don't even know who he is, but but everything gets vanquished in due course of time. So if you are a bank teller and you're counting millions of dollars and then you take $1 off the top of the stack at the end of the day and think, that's all I want is a pack of gum. That's not a big deal. You're fired. Because it's on camera and you took $1 for a pack of gum. I don't think you can get gum for $1 now. I doubt it. A bottle of water is like $4.80 at the airport. Don't get me started. Okay, yes. Oh, wait, you're next. Koladi Pran, and then Sukeshwari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was just thinking when you were telling that even though Hiranyakashipu had all the arrangement for protection and live forever, he could not survive. But in the opposite, Prahlad Maharaj had no protection for himself. He was completely surrendered. But he was protected from all the calamities which was imposed upon by the most powerful personality of the world, material world at the time, that who subjugated even Indra and all the demigods. So Srila Prabhupada uses this phrase also, that Rakhe Krishna Mare Krishna Rakhe. So these pastimes gives us an idea that even if we make all the arrangements, if Krishna doesn't approve it, then we have to actually go through difficult times. Yeah.
Well done. Very crisp and clear and helpful. Sukeshwari.
Prabhuji, I was just thinking about the part that you said, God, when a tree falls. I was reminded, one of my cousins who lives in Australia, he called me and he said, I went to ISKCON, I went to your temple today. I was like, oh wow, very nice. He said, I got the Bhagavad Gita and I'm going to read the whole thing. I said, wow, wonderful. And he said, because I watched a movie. And in the movie, they said that you should read Bhagavad Gita. I was totally surprised. I said, really? There's a movie that talks about Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, it shows Prabhupada's picture. It has Bhagavad Gita as it is. And in that movie, it seems that the hero, he loses his shop. And because he loses his shop, he goes to the insurance. Insurance says, I'm not giving you a pie. So he goes to the court because the court says it's because of God. So then he actually files case against God. So the entire story is about, and then they say that we can't do anything about it. So he reads all the books from all religions, and he reads the Bhagavad Gita as it is as well. And they show Prabhupada's picture. So my cousin, who is such a big, ardent worshipper of that hero, he thought that because he did it, and truly he goes regularly to the temple now. I'm like, wow, how people can get connected. I just want to mention that.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When Maharaj, the song you're singing about Nisringadev, I was thinking that I pray to Nisringadev quite a lot for anarthas which come from outside, like any trouble or any kind of disturbance. But when it comes matter of anarthas which are inside, then it's not very pleasant to pray to remove those anarthas, or like doing that heart surgery. So just wanted to know your viewpoint on this, Maharaj.
In the Bhagavatam, we sing the prayer for that. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namastejas Tejase Aviravirbhava Vajranaka Vajradamscha Karmasaya Randaya Randaya Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Puyishta Om Shraum. There's a bij mantra for Nisringadev. It's a little scary if you say that. Om Shraum. It scares away all the anarthas. This is a prayer for the internal purification of the devotee. He says, my Lord, you have teeth and nails like thunderbolts. Please demolish the demon-like desires for material enjoyment within my heart. We are asking for that. And that's the great relief, because if one, like you just mentioned, Prahlad Maharaj has no material desire within the core of his heart, and that's what he prayed for, then we can't be affected by anything externally, because real effect, or the danger and fear in the material world, come from not taking shelter of Krishna. Then we have cognitive dissonance. Bhayam dvitiya abhinibeshata syad. Dvi means two. I have these ideas that I can be separate from God and happy. And therefore, the devotee is praying. Who sings that verse? Is it Prahlad for the 5th canto? Prahlad Maharaj sings this verse, so you can say it all the time. Please rip out those material desires. If you ever had an ailment where they said, do you want to do this the easy way or the hard way? What's the difference? Well, the easy way takes a lot longer. The hard way I can do right now. It's like, I'll take the hard way. Grit your teeth, rip, it's gone. And the devotees recognize that this is a great benediction, to recognize that what's causing me consternation and fear in the material world is coming from my own attachment to being independent of Krishna. Yes.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the talk. So I have a question. So if can a devotee ask for material facilities to serve Krishna? I was thinking example of Yudhishthira Maharaj for Rajasuya Yagya, and also like Prahlad Maharaj says, we are not there should not be vanik mentality.
Not a merchant.
Yeah. So can you relate and
The merchant is one who wants something in return for himself, and the definition is given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Atmendriya Priti. Atmendriya Priti. Priti means love for my own senses. I want to satisfy my senses. And Krishnendriya Priti means that I want to satisfy Krishna's senses. I have love for that. That's where I put my heart. And when I'm asking for some benediction, something, in order to please Krishna's senses, let me let me distribute 100,000 Srimad Bhagavatams by 2026. Please send Lakshmi. If I'm endeavoring to please Krishna's senses because the spiritual master had said, please distribute this Srimad Bhagavatam to as many people as possible. And then we discern that we can incrementally increase it, and we say, please fulfill my desire so that I can serve my spiritual master. That's not a material desire, because that's Krishnendriya Priti. And when we are ambitious, we're ambitious for Krishna instead of for ourselves. Therefore, we see that Vaishnavas are daring and active, Prabhupada says. And in his poems that he wrote before he came to America, Prabhupada said, people sometimes think that Vaishnavas are cowards. He said, but look at Arjuna. He went into the battlefield and he fought for Krishna. The whole point is, he wasn't fighting for himself. He was only fighting because Krishna said to do it, and he wanted to please Krishna's senses, because he understood after hearing Bhagavad Gita that this is what Krishna wants. And if we understand what Krishna wants and we follow that, then we'll be infallible in the way that we move in the world. That's the difference between being fallible and infallible. It may not seem like that because there may be missteps in the process, but when our intention is lined up with Krishna's, there's no loss, even if we don't immediately realize the fruit of the work we're doing. If our intention is proper, then we can't be hurt by the material nature, nor are we ever unsuccessful. Thus ends this morning's... Oh, okay, I thought you were pointing to the clock, sorry. Vaikuntha Nayaka, please, all the way from Mysore, the land of the Mysore Palace and Mysore Pak.
Dandat Pranam, Guru Maharaj.
Hi, Krishna.
This to you. Maharaj, this is a question which bothers me about the Krishna's protection we talked about a little bit. Right, there are so many incidents where Krishna actually protects, but it's at the nth moment, the last moment. Prahlad is being thrown off the cliff, and then when he's midway, then Krishna comes and catches. Draupadi is almost at the verge of being disrobed, then he protects. Or even Jayadratha's pastime in Mahabharata, it's at the sunset, then actually Krishna does the magic of covering the sun. So, I mean, how to understand, like, it looks like it's some kind of a thrill seeker, but it kind of disturbs the faith of devotees like me, whether he's really going to act, if not when. What's the idea behind actually doing this at the end moment?
It does make life a thrill. And we've noticed here at ISKCON in Silicon Valley, which is a small little laboratory somewhere tucked away in California, where we experiment. We experiment and see how far can we push the goals and how far will Krishna meet us. And every single time we make a new goal, we're not sure how we're going to make it. In fact, it seems like last time it worked, but this time everything's different. So how will we possibly do it this time? I propose that that's where real life is. It's in that gap where we know what we want to do for Krishna, we have that ambition, but we're not sure how we're going to do it. And we decide we're going to do it anyway. no matter what happens. We're going to try for it with all our heart. And then miracles happen. And right after they happen and we reach the goal, then we say, or somebody says, yeah, but can you do it again next year? And we have the same feeling all over again. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to ask his devotees to spend money when they got it. Someone would come along and give a big donation, and then he'd say, spend it all on a festival. He wanted them to feel this sense that we're broke. And now what are we going to do? Depend on Krishna. When the devotees lived in Ultadanga Junction Road, apparently they were very poor because someone, maybe it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or one of his disciples, said, we were so poor. Now remember, you're in Bengal. It was hard for us to even buy rice. That's hard to believe because it's Bengal, where you can't find rice. But that's how poor they were. And when they moved to the big temple in Bagh Bazar with all the marble that somebody had already paid for, mortgage was clear, everything, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we were better off in Ultadanga. Because there we had that sense of adventure, what's going to happen next? And he noticed that devotees were starting to feel that we're entitled. I've got my room now, and plus I get to use the car. And then they start copping a lean. They lean out the window and drive with one hand, and then you're finished. Because you think, oh, I'm so lucky, this is my thing, my profile. Krishna gives us an opportunity to feel that anxiety so that we can close the gap ourselves and more see that Krishna is moving everything. He's the one. And when we take more shelter of Krishna in everything that we do, then we're rightly situated because that's our situation. We're fully dependent on Him. And that's exciting life. That's an exciting life. In an epic class, I don't know which class Radhikaraman Prabhu has ever given that's not epic, but he gave a class in New Vrindavan during one of the festivals that we used to call, what is it called? Yeah, I really got inspired by that class. And he talked about that Krishna waits for Prahlad at the bottom in order to give this sense of dependence on Krishna. And Krishna is a thrill seeker himself. He comes to the material world and get me the biggest demons, I can fight them, and then it looks like he's going to lose, and then he wins. Krishna is always playing, and he would like us to play like that too, in the sense of surrendering to him in service. And the more we close the gap and realize that anything's possible in his service, living in that is real life. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, that preaching is life. Those who have life, they can preach. And that life means that we're just depending on Krishna and going forth with what he said to do. And everyone else around us may be depending on material nature. It may even look up to the last moment that they got it right and we got it wrong. That happens sometimes. People think, well, look at the materialistic person, the Hiranyakashipu. They're living so nicely and no problems. Well, what about you guys? Well, what we have is Shraddha, and that creates our relationship with Krishna. So whatever situation we're in, we are naturally happy because it's like being in the lap of the mother. This is Prahlad Maharaj is feeling the embrace of Krishna all the time. That's one of the verses here in this, later in this section. Yes, Akuranath Prabhu.
So back to my earlier question this morning, how do we know the balance? How do we know how much risk we should take and how much we need to do as our routine duty to protect our own, body and soul together. Arjuna, he asked Krishna, why are you asking me to fight this war if I should just be, intelligence is better than work? And Krishna says, if you're a pretender, if you try to pretend like you can withdraw your senses from their objects, but you're still thinking about sense gratification, then that's not good. That it's better to engage in regulated duties, and even if you're liberated, even if you're a Paramahansa, people like Arjuna, at least, leaders and things should show an example for others so that they don't try to become false renunciates. But how do you know how much renunciation you can take and how much you actually need to be able to, fight Maya?
Do you cut your own fingernails?
Actually, I have to.
Or do you go to the manicurist?
I do it myself.
Okay, how do you know how short to make them?
I just try to keep them very short because it's cleaner.
Very short, cleaner, good idea. But how do you know what's too short?
When it hurts.
Yeah, when you cut your fingernails, you kind of know. It's a science. Don't be too much in a hurry when you cut your fingernails. Like, I gotta go. It's like, oh no, for 5 days now I'm going to be in pain. And we have a sense of what's too short and what's just long enough. There's a admonition given or some directive given on this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if by the way you're positioning yourself, you're gaining strength, you feel that you're gaining strength, then this is a indication that you're properly situated. And Prabhupada echoes the same point in Gajendra. He says everyone has to live in a natural condition of life. What's natural for one person may be unnatural for another. Even I was thinking about, I was in Atlanta for the first time in I think 47 years. Maybe I'm mistaken, but since my godbrother Sura, who always kept track of where I was and what year, at what time, and he already left, so I got nobody I can call. So he, when I got there, I realized 47 years. Why did I bring up Atlanta? I just interrupted myself. Yes, so I remember all those years ago, I was reminiscing with a few godbrothers there, with Chardeshna Prabhu, who I knew all those years ago there, and Balabhadra Prabhu, and remembering how pleasant it was to sleep on the bare floor. And nowadays, it doesn't seem like a very pleasant proposition for me. If I go to somebody's house, they say, yeah, you can just sleep here on the floor. I might ask for something extra. Because things change, and we have natural condition of life that, from which, Prabhupada said, we can be strong to fight against Maya. Everyone needs a natural condition so they can feel that they're strong, and that's the point. You have to have you have to attend to your body, to your mind, have to be in a condition where you feel natural. And then from there, you can fight against Maya. And Prabhupada had given that example based on Gajendra, who could defeat anybody on the land. But once he got in the water, he was in an unnatural condition, and therefore he was defeated by a crocodile, which was much smaller than him, but was stronger in the water. It helps to be self-observant and see, how am I doing in this situation? And if I get too comfortable, that can be a problem. Also, comfort, it's not actual comfort. There is no such, it's a misnomer to say material comfort, because there's only suffering when I try to get material comfort. But if I notice that if I put myself in a situation where I can be close to service, and in the process of doing that, I take what I need in order to be there, then that's a good formula. Ask the question, am I doing this for myself, for my sense gratification, or for my service? Does it increase my service? And that can be a guiding principle to see. Besides, once we're in that situation where we're associating with devotees and we have service, then we'll feel strength. And this is something mentioned in the Madhurya Kadambini. There are 5 obstacles to nishta, or steadiness, where you feel strong. And one of them is sleep. Another one is distraction. Another one is meh, means even though you're not sleepy and there's no distraction, you just don't care. And the other 2 have to do with the internal and external senses. Internally, I have taken on qualities by association with people of lower qualities, and they come out from time to time, and my senses want to do what they want to do. So those are the 5 obstacles to steadiness and feeling happy in devotional service. After those are gone, then the nartya-nivritti is over and nishta starts. So we can judge also by how is my lifestyle and the arrangement I'm making helping me to overcome these 5 obstacles. Prabhu?
Maharaj, when you were saying about dependence on Krishna, I was remembering the initial days when Prabhupada was here. I was remembering how once Shyamsundar Prabhu was mentioning in the class about how they had a place, but they were not sure about how they will pay the next month's rent. And I think Malti Mataji also had mentioned that they were walking on the street and they had literally $100 bills flying, so with which they were able to pay the rent.
Well, we should ask Malati that. She lived in a refrigerator box in London and did many other such austerities following Prabhupada's order. Please enlighten us.
I'm just trying. He's talking about London, and you were talking about San Francisco. So maybe I'll talk about Montreal, because that was right in the middle. Because that's where we went when we left San Francisco on our way to London. And although there was a roof over our head, the walls were made of sheets hung on clothes wire, rope, like you're going to make because the place was a very large space, a former bowling alley. So they took rope and crisscrossed it, hung sheets with clothespins, and made little rooms. So your wall was a sheet, and the floor was your bed. No yoga mats. But we were happy because Srila Prabhupada was there. And we were able to observe Janmashtami with him. And the next day was, of course, his Vyas Puja. The kitchen was smaller than your deity room, and it was just like a little narrow affair because the place wasn't set up for living. But somehow there was a feast that was made, and it was offered to Srila Prabhupada. My habit at that time was to sit and try to listen. And because we did not know whether or not we would see him again, I sat right there in front of him with my 6-week-old child. She was nursing. I had my sari over her head. And by the way, Srila Prabhupada noticed this favorably and commented on it later in a letter to Krishna Devi. He said, I have seen that Malati is nursing her child at all of my classes, and therefore the child is never causing any disturbance. It's up to the mother to keep the child happy, quiet, Anyways, that was the situation. And I brought him the big, beautiful plate full of wonderful Vyas Puja offerings. And there was a gulab jamuns. So he picks up a gulab jamun and he bites and, squirts out. And then he looks at me and he indicated that I should come up. So still holding the baby, I came up and he put my hand out. He indicated, put my hand out. And he dropped the gulab jamun, which he had just taken a bite from, in my hand and said it was for the baby. So my kind of, foolish, stupid, less intelligent American woman mind went, because the baby was 6 weeks old, right? You're not supposed to feed the child solids until the kid is like 6 months. So my mind went through this little quick, like, how do I do this? And then, common sense kicked in, put the gulab by her mouth, and babies, they suck when they're 6 weeks old. So she sucked the juice out, and I ate what was left. And then later, on that same day, ceremonies were over, and we were leaving to go to New York City, from where we would take the first leg of our journey from New York to eventually the UK. We didn't go direct to the UK. Stopped at Hook Van Halt. So we went into Srila Prabhupada's room, and I had requested from Govindadasi, who was his servant at that time, if she would ask him if we could touch his feet. Because although I knew that he did not like having his feet touched, I observed that when people would try to touch his feet, he wasn't too encouraging about it. But I had also heard that, 10,000 lifetimes of sinful lifetimes would be vanished if you touched the lotus feet of a pure devotee. What I hadn't heard was you're dumping your 10,000 sinful lifetimes on his feet. So then after I heard that, I understood why he didn't really have a lot of interest in having his feet touched. But at the time, all I was thinking about was, we're going to London. We don't know one person there. We have no money. And somehow or other, we are going to meet the Beatles. They're going to chant Hare Krishna, and we're going to find a temple for Srila Prabhupada. But how would any of this happen? And it might not even happen. So I felt we needed all the mercy we could obtain. So Govindadasi asked him, and he agreed. So we went into the room, and he was sitting, had a low, like what you call coffee table. They stand, the tables that are in front of your couch. So he would use those for a desk. So we had some last words. He kind of tilted his head and he goes, my Guru Maharaj sent sannyasis to England and they couldn't accomplish anything. I'm sending grihastas. And he smiled. And then he removed his feet from under that table and extended them. And one by one we went, put our head down on his lotus feet, and he took his lotus hand and rubbed at the nape of the neck. And there was a surcharge of, I can only say, spiritual electricity. We knew very well that you don't get enlightenment by the guru tapping you on the forehead or something like that. We knew that, but there was this, when he did that, this like spiritual electricity. And at that moment, I understood we would be able to accomplish, but when and how, that was another thing. But that confidence was instilled. So then Jamuna came. She was a former Catholic, and Catholics are into kissing like the hand of the Pope, or other things. And she grabbed his lotus feet and kissed them, Maha Mega Mercy. So then we all had that opportunity, and his feet came down the desk, and he looks at me and said, hand me the baby, hand me the child. He would call her child. And passed her over, and he put her facing out, so they're both facing out, and he had a garland on, and he flipped it over both of them. And then he had this little cheeky smile, and he goes, now they will say, what kind of sannyasi is he? because there had been criticism from the God brothers. Oh, Swami Goswami Maharaj, that was a proper address. Goswami Maharaj, he's gone to America and he's associating with the Mlechas. That was us, so therefore that little quip. And then we took his leave. Interestingly enough, when we arrived there, we didn't know where he was staying, but it definitely wasn't in the bowling alley. So I grabbed Janaki and I said, let's find out where he is. She says, how will we know? And I said, well, we'll just walk around and we're going to see, if we see some orange cloth, we'll know that's where he is. And that's exactly what happened. So I went up and knocked on the door, and Govinda Dasi opened the door, and she goes, Swamiji, the devotees from San Francisco have arrived. And he looked up, so I'm there with Janaki, I had the baby, and he goes, oh, this very morning, I had a dream about this very child. I dreamt about this very child this morning. And one might have thought that I would say, oh, what did you dream? But I didn't. I was just, that was, he didn't need more. He had recognized my daughter. And as a parent, that was beyond any type of mundane satisfaction you could ever conjure up.
Because of yours and the other devotees in those early days that were daring and active in Prabhupada's service, it was a wedge that opened up possibilities for everybody. What to speak of, because of your adherence to Srila Prabhupada's instruction and boldly doing that, the Krishna conscious movement is now all over the world. Prabhupada acknowledged that it was his disciples empowered by his instruction, just as he had been empowered by his spiritual master's instruction. Coming back to the point we made earlier, which is that this is life. Material life is never safe, Prahlad Maharaj says here. Life in the material world is unstable. Anything could happen at any minute. But if one is fully engaged in fulfilling the mission of Lord Chaitanya through the Guru Parampara, then there's never anything lacking, and one's always in a safe position. So we're very grateful to you, Malaji Devi, and to Shyamasundar and the other devotees from that era who very boldly, daringly went off to teach Krishna consciousness in London and elsewhere around the world. Just see the result. So that's what we're doing in the International Cyber Krishna Consciousness. It's not an opportunity to be comfortable. There is no material comfort, and there's no guarantee in the material world. There's no insurance that can cover everything. There will be something missing. It's like, I forgot that part. So if one can muster this spirit of Prahlad Maharaj and of the devotees who have pioneered this movement, then one can have the most exciting and prolific life, prolific in the sense of seeing everything, knowing everything that's possible to know in this lifetime. And so on this Nrsimha Caturdasi, we can pray for this spirit to be daring and active. And as we do our due diligence in our daily duties, whatever they may be, we can continue our expansion of the Krishna conscious movement and our services and take shelter of Prahlad Maharaj's words. That Krishna's our protector and he's our maintainer. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadeva, if you so desire, please let us take exclusive shelter of you for our protection and our maintenance. And please empower us to expand the Sankirtan movement in amazing ways that will please your lordships. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpadrishya kripasindabe vacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. We'll be starting up here at 5 o'clock this afternoon with hearing and chanting from Giriraj Swami, who's here in the area. We can feel it. And we'll have Abhishek, we'll have Kirtan, we'll have Katha about Lord Nrsingadev, and then there'll be a feast around midnight. Just kidding. So we'll see you all in a little bit. Hare Krishna.